I'm never quite sure what to do when someone suggests to me that Jesus was not political. I think what they're really suggesting is that I, as a Christian preacher, should avoid political references in the pulpit. But if I give them the benefit of the doubt, taking them at face value, perhaps their meaning is that Jesus was not a politician, that is, one seeking election within the structures of civic government. And I would agree with that narrower definition. Jesus was not seeking elected office, but he was decidedly political. Walter Brueggemann, the dear theologian and Old Testament scholar who died this past week at the age of 92, he had a significant impact on my spiritual journey and, by extension, my preaching. We've had him here preaching twice in my time. Brueggemann called Jesus, quote, the great voice of otherwise, a prophetic and political figure who exposed the contradictions of empire and offered an alternative reality based on God's dreams for us. That's political, folks. It got Jesus killed. To speak of the kingdom or reign of God as a counter to Caesar's kingdom is political. To say that Jesus is Lord in our lives is a political statement because allegiance to Christ takes precedence over all other earthly pledges of allegiances we may make. And Jesus' politics were always orienting to the subversive power of forgiveness and love and mercy, especially to those on the margins. And no one in the Gospels is more on the margins than this man in our Gospel passage this morning, forced to live in a haunted landscape of demons and death, shackled, subjugated, objectified. History does not afford him a name. He is known simply, sadly, as the Gerasene demoniac. Despised by his own people, left to languish naked in a graveyard, which is where Jesus finds him and sees him and has mercy on him. Mercy meets the demons straight on. Now, at first glance, this story is about a man with mental illness whom Jesus heals. There's some quirky parts thrown in to make it memorable: demonic shouting, crazy pigs flying off the cliffs into the sea, the fear-driven response of some of the locals who see Jesus, in Jesus, so much power that they just simply want him to go away. Go away, Jesus. Divine presence is too much for some. It's too much for us all, if we're really honest. But leaving it there as a story objectifying one man riddled with demons would miss this story's deeper, profound truth penetrating the fabric of our lives and the fabric of our world here and now. And this is the political pivot I am inviting you to make with me this morning. Jesus sails to the other side of the lake. The other side of the tracks, if you will, from Galilee and its familiar comforts to the other side, to Gerasa, where the others dwell, forced to eke out an existence under the imperial thumb. Xenophobic suspicion and hatred have long since forced their deportation to the other side, away from the more fertile Galilean countryside, across the lake, where the craggy soil would grow thickets of brush and little else. Pigs can live there, and they became the means of survival for these other people. Pigs, the proverbial uncleanest of the unclean. And in this community of outsiders, there is one who, as symptom bearer and scapegoat, would be stripped and shackled and left amidst the tombs, his solitary confinement, stripped of his dignity. Jesus goes to visit this man in prison and must have loved him, because the demons that haunted the man begged Jesus to stop loving him into worthiness. Leave us alone. Let us continue as we are. We are legion. Legion wants the status quo. Legion, the term for a phalanx of Caesar's army, 6,000 strong. Legion, the epitome of power, the military force of the empire, the keepers of the peace, a peace maintained through brutal means. It is no peace, friends. It is not peace when it is premised on the suffering of some for the benefit of others. It is no peace when some must pass over the way that their tears have watered. It is no peace when some must tread the path through the blood of the slaughtered, to use the well-worn words from our hymn, Lift Every Voice. The prophetic and political imagination of Jesus was a disruptive force so powerful that the empire could not tolerate it, would not tolerate it, because it was a full-throated challenge to what Brueggemann called the royal consciousness. The royal consciousness. He said it 50 years ago. The royal consciousness, the swirl of the system of power and consumerism and capitalism and control that seeks to sate its gluttonous need for more, more, more. And Jesus says, no, not that. Not that way. He brings the great prophetic tradition to bear, the prophetic tradition which has three main themes: judgment, hope, and mercy. So first, judgment. Judgment is not some finger-wagging denunciation. It is literally, the Greek word for judgment is crisis. It is the crisis moment, and seeing the crisis moment as an upending of the status quo, an upending which the powers that be will never tolerate, will always resist. It is the upending of the status quo into which the prophetic voice holds space, always holds space for the anxiety we feel when our current world is vanishing and we can't yet see the shape of what is to come. Feeling uneasy in these crisis moments, friends, is natural. There's no need to deny it. But what we do with that uneasiness and who we foist it upon to relieve our own anxieties, that's what will define the trajectory of our lives and of the world that we have before us. Brueggemann said that undifferentiated anxiety will orient every time to consumerist numbing out at another's expense. He uses a fabulous word. He says, the royal consciousness will want to narcoticize us. In Brueggemann's voice, I could just hear it, that raspy, deep, narcoticize us. Will want to narcoticize us into soporific self-interest. But the salacious lie of that path is that it leads to what Brueggemann says is a deprecation of memory and a ridicule of hope. At our peril, we forget the lessons learned across a history rife with injustices. At our peril, we faint into submission to the powermongers if we lose hope. When we lose social memory and courageous hope, that's precisely where we identify a symptom bearer and a scapegoat who becomes shackled and stripped of their dignity. We forget they have a name. We forget their humanity. We resign ourselves to the lie that it is better for one to suffer than for us all to suffer. But Jesus, this great voice of otherwise, offers another way. Another way, which brings us to the second prevailing prophetic theme of hope. Hope is the language of this prophetic tradition, girded by the whispers and shouts and signs that God promises, I am about to do a new thing. Pay attention right here, right now. Hope is not some ephemeral optimism that the chaos of our current crisis will will suddenly subside. It is not dependent on our making the correct extrapolation about our future, as if we can read the tea leaves and everything will just turn out all right. No, hope is predicated on the faithfulness of a God who has promised to show up. It is the courageous trust that God is doing a new thing here and now with you and me, and is inviting you and me into it. Which brings me to mercy. Mercy is the capacity to give oneself away for the sake of others, expecting nothing in return. Expecting nothing in return. It is not transactional, and the royal consciousness cannot compute that which is not transactional. Mercy does not seek to consume or hoard all the resources for oneself. It does not create scapegoats. It creates holy attachments with others. And friends, here's the nut of it. Our society will not survive without the practice of mercy. So I ask you, on this morning when the geopolitical swirl has got us all confused and concerned, I ask you as disciples of Jesus, can you see how practicing mercy and hope in your life in this crisis moment is at once political and prophetic and poetically referential to the God who desires nothing less for us? This is our moment, friends. This is our moment. This is our crisis moment. This crisis moment where hope and mercy will reveal the path before us for us to find our way. So let us be on our way together, shall we? Amen.